ChatGPT is a mathematical model that falls under the umbrella of deep learning. Now, this is not a course on deep learning. I have another much longer course on that. So I'm not going to teach you how deep learning works, but it is important for you to have at least a high level understanding of how deep learning models work. That's important because understanding about the models will help you appreciate what ChatGPT is and what it's not good for. So, deep learning emerged from artificial neural networks in the 1940s by these guys who are engineers. An artificial neuron can be illustrated like this. So we have a central node here, which receives input from a previous layer or from input data from the outside world. Now, each of these input values is weighted so that some inputs are more important than others, and some can contribute negative numbers while others provide positive numbers. And if the sum over all of the weighted inputs exceeds some threshold value, then this unit will give an output, which is either a prediction about the world or it's an input into the next node in the network. Now, these weights are initialized to be random, but then the model learns over repeated examples how to set these weights to give the correct answer. So yeah, this initial work started in the 1940s. In the 1980s, researchers developed the backpropagation algorithm, which is commonly called backprop. And backprop allows the models to adjust the weights in a more efficient manner, and that allows the models to become more complex. And then in the early 2000s, there were several breakthroughs in model architecture and simultaneous advances in hardware and large-scale data sets. And together, these enabled deep learning to achieve remarkable performance in various tasks, including image recognition and game playing and natural language processing. The latest impressive accomplishments in deep learning include generative models like ChatGPT. Deep learning is everywhere in technology, and it will continue to become more prevalent in every aspect of our lives, from your phone to your car to almost any website. Now, it's always hard to predict how new technologies will develop and be incorporated into our work and personal lives, but I think we can all agree on one thing. Language models like ChatGPT are already proving to be transformative in how we work. It is likely to have a significant impact on jobs, especially in the tech sector. And so what should you do about it? Well, the way I see it, you have two options. You can choose to understand, embrace, and use ChatGPT effectively and to your advantage, which will also help you work more effectively and help you future-proof your studies and your career. Or you can choose to bitterly oppose ChatGPT, refuse to have anything to do with it, which means it means you're going to get left behind when your competitors are using models like ChatGPT. Obviously, I know which option you choose because you're watching this video right now. Okay, so now I want to talk about large language models, which are sometimes abbreviated as LLM. And ChatGPT is currently the most popular example of a large language model. The general goal of language models is to have algorithms that can process and use human-level language. Now, if you are new to deep learning models, then it might sound like science fiction, and it actually was sci-fi until fairly recently. Now, the underlying principles of language models are actually very simple. It's just a weighted linear sum, like what I presented earlier, and a simple nonlinear function. Now, there are modifications and specializations of the architecture. These are modifications that are optimized for language processing, including understanding things like context. This allows models like ChatGPT to remember information over time and also to extract context and meaning, which can help ChatGPT give you broader replies, generate examples, and produce analogies. A big part of the development of large language models like ChatGPT comes from exposing these models to massive amounts of online text. Now, these models require a lot of human interactions to hand tweak the models and to get them to produce sensible outputs. Now, there are also important safety guardrails that need to be put in place in order to prevent ChatGPT from discussing things that are illegal or abusive or discriminatory and so on, and also to make sure that ChatGPT can warn you about some of its own limitations, for example, about the possibility of getting facts wrong. Now, there are really huge societal issues surrounding models like ChatGPT because the companies that produce and develop these models are driven by making money, and the profit motive does not always align with what's best for individuals and what's best for society. On the other hand, having a government completely control and regulate this technology is not necessarily ideal. For example, if the government is oppressive and uses this kind of technology to manipulate public opinion. So there are lots of really important issues to work out about how we balance tech development to improve productivity and health and quality of life with regulations to make sure that these powerful technologies are not abused by malicious individuals, companies, and governments. That is a discussion that is beyond the scope of this course, but I do think it's important for us all to be thinking about large-scale implications of language model technology as we are learning about the technology and as we are utilizing it. Okay, now I'd like to talk more specifically about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is developed by a company called OpenAI. ChatGPT is not generally intelligent. That would be called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. So ChatGPT is not it's not self-aware. It's not capable of doing things on its own. Instead, ChatGPT is just a next word predictor. That's all it is. It just predicts the next word to write. In this sense, ChatGPT is basically the same as that old school T9 algorithm that was used on mobile phones like 25 years ago. The difference is that ChatGPT is way, 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 way more sophisticated. That's partly because of how huge and complex the network is, and partly because of how much data it's been trained on. Now, here is an important thing to understand about ChatGPT. It was trained on text on the web. So it's basically as smart as your average person who writes online text. And so that's something to think about. It is not this omniscient God. It doesn't know everything about everything. Instead, ChatGPT is just an extremely good writer, and it's able to integrate a lot of information that other people have written, and ChatGPT is able to summarize what it's read online in clear language that is easily understood. Another important thing to understand about ChatGPT is that it's basically as useful as the prompts that you give it. So if you want to use ChatGPT effectively, you need to give it effective prompts. And that's something to keep in mind that is called prompt engineering. I will discuss that in more detail in the ChatGPT videos later in this course. But yeah, ChatGPT is not a mind reader, and you cannot trust that it will just figure out exactly what you need and what you want from it. Okay, next I want to talk about pricing. I'm recording this in May of 2023, so I will update this part of the video if things change dramatically in the future. But right now, it is free to use ChatGPT. It requires signing in or creating a login with openai.com. I will show you how to do that in the next video. You can then access ChatGPT for free. There are usage caps. You might get blocked if the usage is heavy, but those blocks are just temporary. They will lift after minutes or hours. You could also pay for an upgrade right now that costs around $20 per month. That gets you faster response times, upgrade to the latest ChatGPT model, and better access during busy periods. But let me be clear. You do not need the paid version of ChatGPT for this course. In fact, you don't even need to use ChatGPT for this course at all. I only present it in a handful of videos. You do not need ChatGPT at all. If you choose to upgrade, that's fine. If you decide that it's worth paying for an upgrade to the current version of ChatGPT, if you decide to do that, it's totally fine. You absolutely do not need to pay any money for this course for ChatGPT. Now I want to talk about versions. The tech is changing really fast. I used ChatGPT 4 when I made this course. It is possible that there are newer versions available when you're watching this course. Newer versions of ChatGPT, I'm sure, will be better than the version that I'm currently filming with, but I don't think that will significantly change the conclusions that I draw here, because what I show in this course in the ChatGPT videos is not particular facts that ChatGPT claims. Instead, I'm training you to utilize a skill of using ChatGPT to improve your Matlab coding. Of course, if things qualitatively change about interacting with ChatGPT, I will update the videos as relevant, but I suspect that newer versions of ChatGPT will be using newer versions will be the same as using the version I'm using now. It's just that the outputs will be better. So in this video, I told you a bit about ChatGPT, and in the next video, I will show you how to access it and start using it.